What's going on, everybody? Today I'm bringing you another video, and today I wanted to talk about the three biggest things that I think stop people from achieving their goals. Now, when people set goals, a lot of times they have a lot of difficulty. Anybody can set a goal, but the hard part is actually achieving the goal. This is what happens with like New Year's resolutions. I know I have set a lot of New Year's resolutions that I haven't followed, and you probably have done the same thing. We'll set a goal, we think it'll be super easy to achieve it, and then we go and try to achieve it, and we find out that it's actually a lot more difficult than we thought, or maybe we don't even ever start on it. We can't get motivated to get started on the goal. And when I first started this process of personal change and self development, I encountered a lot of different struggles as well. But there were three things to me that I think were the biggest hurdles in achieving success. And the number one thing that stopped me in the beginning was my mindset. And the next thing I would say was probably sacrifice. And I forgot the third thing. Oh, the third thing, responsibility. And I want to actually start with responsibility because I think that's the first step that you need to take on the journey. And the first time I really understood this concept and really started living it was when I read the book Extreme Ownership. And I strongly recommend that book if you haven't read it. It's very interesting. It's by a couple of war veterans, Leif Babin and Jocko Willink. And it's really good. I highly recommend that book. So go ahead and read that if you haven't done that. But the basic idea is you need to take ownership for everything that's in your life. And I wasn't doing that at all. And that's a lot of times how we get stuck in life is we blame. We blame anything we can. And that's what a lot of America is doing. If we're not in the situation we want, we blame other people. It's either my parents were bad, the government is bad, the rich people are taking all the money and we need to tax the rich, or China has all the jobs, or China's destroying the US economy. All these different things, we get things from all sorts of different areas. And whether they're true or not, the question is, what are you going to do about it in your situation? Because maybe you did have shitty parents, or maybe you are stuck in a terrible situation, or maybe somebody did do something terrible to you. All those things happen and they suck. And the only thing that you can do about it is how are you going to choose to respond to that? And the first step that you need to make is accepting responsibility for moving forward. Because if you harbor resentment or like negativity towards somebody from something that happened in the past, and say they have like kind of forgotten about it, the only person that's hurting anymore is you because they're living their life. They don't care anymore. The only person that holding on to that negativity is affecting is you. And it's kind of really like constricting. It's like tightening around you. It's almost like a noose around your neck it's really constricting all your positive energy flow. And so you need to accept the responsibility for, you have to either accept the situation fully or take responsibility for changing it. If there's something unresolved that you need to take care of, then you have to take responsibility. Don't wait for them, because if they haven't done it, they're probably not going to do it. You need to do something about it, because that's what your life is about. When I started this whole thing, I had always thought that someday my life I'd kind of get my big break. I would find the job that I love and I'm super passionate about, or I would find some sort of inspiration to get into great shape. But I eventually realized, after 4 years out of college and things just like very slowly going downhill until I hit a point where I was like, what if I don't ever find these things? I'm not going to, what if I don't just, what if they don't happen to hit me while I'm just sitting here doing nothing? And it kind of terrified me. And that was the point where I realized that I need to go out and make something happen. And what I was doing was blaming my situation on all sorts of other people, my parents, my job, all these sorts of my education, all these sorts of different things. And I realized that it's all bullshit. You are responsible for your life. And maybe other people helped you make those decisions in the past that put you where you are now. but the only one who's going to get you out of a negative situation right now is you. So that was really the biggest first step, and you have to take full responsibility for everything in your life. And so number one, things you can directly control are the easiest. That's why I think that um, your physical health is probably the best training you can use for this, because you 100% control your physical health. You know, everything you put into your body, it's like nobody's forcing you to eat those things. Nobody is like holding you back, stopping you from exercising. You can do any of these things. And that's why I think it's the greatest training, because it doesn't involve other people. And so I think that's a great starting point, is to take responsibility for your own health. But even further than that, when you take responsibility for other people, you can't take direct responsibility for their actions because you can't control them. But what you can do is think about how you can influence them. And what that means is you try to influence them to take certain actions or not to take certain actions, or influence their environment, or, use different tools of persuasion, power dynamics, and all that sort of stuff plays into just persuasion. And when you can persuade somebody, you can kind of try to, I don't want to say manipulate their actions, but you can influence their actions in order to get the best thing for you and the best thing for them. And so those are kind of the two things at play, is taking control of everything taking full responsibility for everything that you can control in life. And then anything that you can't control, doing as much as you can to influence the situation. And you can also just accept it. It's like, if you can't control, the weather, obviously, you just accept it. But what else can I do to influence the situation? Meaning, if I don't like that it's raining, I can just wear an umbrella, or get an umbrella, or wear a raincoat, or any of that sort of stuff. So it's like, what can you do in your situation to move it forward rather than just complaining about it? So basically, the biggest thing to take away from this is, if you it this is so ingrained in us and in our society that it's hard to see when you're doing it. So what I want you to do is pay attention to your thoughts. And if you ever blame, criticize, or complain about anything, then those are all different forms of not taking responsibility. Because that's where they all come from. If you're blaming somebody, you're not taking responsibility. If you're criticizing someone else, you're not taking responsibility for their actions. And if you complain, then you're not taking responsibility for your own mindset and your own moods. So just really become really aware of what you're thinking. And if you ever are blaming, complaining, or criticizing, then you're not accepting responsibility. And just think about the areas of your life that you're not taking responsibility in, and stop doing those things and start taking full responsibility for your results in those areas. And then the next thing I want to talk about is your mindset. And taking responsibility is a part of your mindset. It's just such an important one that I wanted to put it as its own thing. And your mindset is basically all of your different thoughts and beliefs. So it's hard to kind of go into detail, because what I did when I started my self-development journey is, basically, your mindset is so important because it is what moves you to action or stops you moving into action. And so basically, when you set your vision, your vision's up here, you're down here, your mindset is what closes the gap. You have to do the work, but in order to do the work, you have to have the right mindset. And if you're not able to do the work, it's your mindset that is at fault. And there's kind of like all these different things that go into mindset. You have millions of different thoughts, ideas, um, habits. All these sort of things are what I consider to be your mindset. And that's why it's so difficult to change your mindset, but you have to work on, like, slowly over time, chipping away at your negative mindset and working on building a positive mindset. And basically, the process that I use is, what you want to do is, before you so you have your vision up here and you're right here. The hardest point is, so you set all your goals, you know exactly what you need to do. The hardest thing to do is actually do them. So the hardest time, at least that I've found, is when it comes time to actually execute on the thing. So say you're going to be like, well, I'm going to run a mile every day. Well, the time comes to run the mile, you're staring at your shoes and you're like, I really have had a hard day. I really just don't feel like it today. But tomorrow, I'll run extra hard and I'll work on my diet a little more tomorrow. That's the kind of thing that will stop you from achieving your goals. And so what you want to do is in the moment when you need to execute, you have to be very aware of what's going on in your mind. What sort of thoughts are popping into your head and being like, hey, don't do this? Because all those thoughts, I want you to stop thinking about them as real thoughts. Think about them as bullshit because that's what it is. It's your own mind trying to talk you out of doing what you already agreed to yourself that you need to do. And so, what this is kind of the short term mentality taking over your true self. And it's kind of pulling you back down and trying to make sure that you don't change because for whatever reasons, humans have an extreme inertia to change, meaning that for some reason the human brain just doesn't like to change at all. And I'm not sure why that is. Fear of the unknown, I guess. Maybe it's evolutionary, but we just have an extreme resistance to change. And when you try to start changing your life, it almost feels like you're ripping yourself apart. At least that's what it felt like to me. It just feels, it's a very odd feeling. And that's why people don't change. That's why people don't change because you have to push through that resistance in order to achieve whatever you're trying to achieve. And so there's so many different aspects of mindset that I can't go into all the details during the course of my own evolution, trying to get to the next level in my life. I probably learned like 30 to 40 of the most important things that would stop people from achieving success. And I actually have never really talked about any of those, so maybe I can put them all together in kind of like a book or a PDF. Because you have to be able to really monitor your thoughts closely, thoughts and emotions closely, and see what's going on in your head that's stopping you from achieving these things. And then you want to use what I call my transformation notebook to identify these things that are stopping you and eliminate them from your mindset. And it's not a process that happens overnight. It's a very continual process that takes place over time. I don't want you to think that you just like remove these things with NLP or something. If you're familiar with that, I won't talk about that in this video, but I don't believe that change really takes place like that. It happens very slowly and methodically over time. And basically what happens is when you start working on your mindset, you create your mindset up here for one day, and your actions must elevate you to that mindset. So your mindset is the first thing that takes place, and then you have to put in the work to support that mindset. And that's just the process every day over and over and over again until you achieve your goals. I forgot my last one here. Oh, sacrifice. Especially in our culture today, nobody wants to sacrifice anything. I'm not sure how exactly all this happened, but a lot of Americans, and myself included, we're very entitled to everything. We think like we should have everything in life be easy, and we shouldn't have to do any hard work to get it, and we are entitled to whatever we feel we deserve. It's great to be entitled to that stuff, but if you're not already achieving those things, you're not entitled to them. So there's no point in having that sort of mindset, because to me that entitlement mindset comes back to the first thing we talked about, is not taking responsibility. A sense of entitlement is being like, I should have this thing, I don't have this thing, who can I blame for not having this thing? And that to me is essentially what entitlement is. And so to go back to the very first thing, the only person you can blame is yourself, because you're the only person who's going to get you out of the situation. Don't say that the government needs to change something or needs to tax the rich more so that they can support the lower class and the middle class more. Take responsibility for your own life. Don't wait for these things to happen. Don't sit around and complain and bitch about anything else that's going on in your life. Go out and make things happen. And in order to do that, you have to sacrifice. This is another one that's really, really difficult to do. But in order to spend time moving your life forward, you're going to have to do different things, obviously. And if you're going to be doing different things, just by definition, means you're going to have to sacrifice some things. Time is a zero-sum game. If you spend your time working on this thing, you're not going to be able to work on this thing anymore. And people waste a lot of time on social media, the internet, television, all sorts of entertainment. For me, it was computer games. I still play computer games, but I really had to severely limit that. And that was just sacrificing that in the beginning was probably one of the biggest keys to my success. So this process is so difficult. I don't think you should get rid of, like, you can't just say, oh, I'm cutting out all the junk in my life. Maybe just start with one thing. And for me, it was playing video games too much. Playing computer games all the time really sucked. It sucked in all my time and energy. And it's just also, when you have a bad habit like that, what it does for me is it kind of attracts bad habits. Like if you have a good habit, it'll attract good habits. And if you have a bad habit, it'll draw other bad habits to it. So whenever I played video games, I would eat a whole bunch of junk food, drink whatever, and I would just gain a bunch of weight because when I played video games, I didn't care about what I was eating. I was just eating, whatever, as much as I wanted, whatever I could find, and it's just not good for your health. It like draws in other negative habits with it as well. And so you have to be able to sacrifice these things in order to achieve success. And so I would just start with your biggest one like that and just get rid of it. And for me, I kind of took the approach of almost like you do honestly get addicted to these things, and it's very difficult. And so I kind of took the approach of like almost like I was an alcoholic with my video games. So what I did was anything in your environment that reminds you of that thing, you have to get rid of, because once you see a trigger for that habit, you're done. Even if you can resist it, the mental energy you have to spend to resist it, you're not going to be productive in anything else. So you really have to identify any sort of triggers you have for this habit and eliminate them completely from your environment and as much as you can from your entire life. And so for me, the two biggest things were I would watch YouTube videos about the game. And so, when you get on YouTube, all of the videos that pop up are about the game. And so then obviously I see the videos and I want to play the game. So I had to cut it at the root there. And so I deleted all my history so it wouldn't give me recommended videos anymore. And then I also installed a blocker. A lot of people make fun of me for this. They're like, oh, why don't you just use your willpower and just not look at it? And sure you can, but that's like, saying to an alcoholic, hey, why don't you just not drink the alcohol? Keep the liquor in the house, but just don't drink it. And it just doesn't really work out, and if you're not addicted to something, maybe you don't really understand the concept, but I don't want to say that I couldn't have done it, but it would have been very difficult. And like I said, it would draw so much mental energy trying not to do it that it would be not productive. So I just installed a blocker on my phone so I can't access YouTube. I can't access the game on my computer because the blocker blocks that as well. And so for me, that was super helpful. Once you stop playing it for like a couple weeks and you eliminate all of the old pattern triggers, you really kind of forget about it. You really do. It's kind of a weird thing. Like it's for the first couple weeks, it's really hard. It's almost like tearing it out of yourself, but then you kind of get used to it. So you have to identify what you can sacrifice in your life in order to achieve these goals, because you can't achieve anything without sacrifice. And people just really don't want to sacrifice things. And I found it fascinating. When I first started this process, I wanted to be like a weight loss coach, a health coach. And I figured out I didn't really like to do that. I like more of just self-development in general rather than specifically weight loss. But I did have some clients and stuff, and when I work with them, I would basically make them sign a contract at the beginning. It's like, hey, I commit 100% to this. I'm going to do absolutely whatever it takes to get this done. I will sacrifice whatever I need to in order to achieve my goals. and people wouldn't sign it. And this really fascinated me. People wouldn't sign it. People just they want to achieve their goals, but they're not willing to sacrifice for them. So get the idea out of your head that everything